What is going on, guys? So in this exercise we were asked to develop a program that gets three values and finds out which one of them is the maximum and which one of them is the minimum. So to do it, let's just add another example, all right, as we are doing always in these challenges. So 5, 5, 3, and 7, if we have these three numbers, then the output that we will see on the screen is maximum equals to 7 and that minimum equals to 3. All right. So another example you probably seen on the challenge introduction. And now I just want to let you know that this exercise is actually not so difficult because we know how to find out the maximum and the minimum between two numbers, so we just need to extend it a little bit. But also the main idea here was to also find out the maximum and the minimum between these three numbers in the most, let's say, in the most appropriate way. So we could use just something like that. Let's start with the basic template that we will use in all of the cases. So first of all, let's create our three variables, int a, b, and c. I'll call them this way. And now let's print some nice message to the screen. Let's go like printf, enter first number. Let's read it. Let's read this number. Let's read this value using this scanf function, %d, and place it inside of a. Okay, so copy and paste these two lines just to make it quicker. I don't recommend you to copy and paste anything in your code. I'm just doing it right now because I want to summarize and to use the video as fast as I can to explain it to you guys. So let's use Control V, enter second number, and enter third number. Here we are going to use b, and here we are going to use c. So a, b, and c are our three variables which hold the values that the user inserted, the three values that the user used. So now once we have all of these values, we are ready to move on to using some conditions. So in this part, this section, there is a couple of different ways that you can solve it. All right, probably you started with one option and then you realized that you may use another option, and one is okay and one is not. So there are a couple of approaches here, and you can do something like that. If a is greater than b, then we are going to use a nested if condition, and we are going to write it like this. If b is greater than c, then we know for sure that the minimum value is going to be stored inside of the variable c, right? Because a is greater than b, b is greater than c, then definitely c is less than b and a. So we can use something like this, printf minimum equals to %d, and use the value of c. All right. And if that's not the case, we are going to use an else and printf that the minimum right now is going to be inside of variable b, in b, okay? Because if b is not greater than c, then b is the smallest value probably between these three values. And there you go, that's how you find the minimum value. Semicolon at the end, don't forget it. And basically you can see that what it took us to find out what variable, and basically you can see what it takes to find out in this approach just the minimum value. I'm not talking about the maximum value, and I'm not talking about the else for this condition. If we are going to use here another else, we are also going to copy and paste all of this part, and that is just to find out the minimum between these three numbers, and then you have to specify how you will find the maximum between them, and you can see it's just a mess. You can see a bunch of if and else and conditions and nested conditions, and that's not the optimized way that you have to solve this problem. So at this point you should start thinking about how you can solve an exercise. All right, at this point where in your programming career you should think of how can you solve this program elegantly with as much less lines of code as possible and to make it more clear to you when you even read it. So we will remove these lines of code and we will do something like this. So please stay tuned that this one, it's very important, the notes that I'm about to give you right now. We are going to create another two variables that will help us to solve this exercise, and these variables are going to be int max and min. Alright, two variables, maximum and minimum, that will hold the maximum and the minimum values correspondingly based on the results of different parts of our code. So we will assume here at this line, we will assume that maximum will be equals to the value inside of variable a, and that the minimum value will equal to variable b. And that's just an assumption that we are doing to make sure that we are not using a lot of if-else conditions. So let's use the first condition, if, and ask if. So I hope the assumption, you got the whole of it. You understand why we use this assumption here instead of using the else section right beneath the if condition. So at this point we know which value between a and b is higher and which value is less than the other one. And we are going to ask another condition and to see if maximum, if the max value is less than c. Alright, we know that max holds the maximum value at this point between a and b, and now we are going to see if either it's a or b. If it's less than c, then c should be inside of this variable, inside of max. So if that's the case, we are going to say that max equals to c, right? Makes sense. But if it's not the case, should we use the else statement here and to specify what? If it's not the case, if max is not less than c, if c is not greater than max, then max already holds the higher value. It holds either it's b or a. It depends on which one of them is greater than the other. So there is no need for the else section here. But what we would also like to do is to see maybe c is less than the minimum. And if that's the case, if c is less than the minimum, and the minimum at this point holds the value that the lowest value between a and b, if that's the case, if c is less than one of these value, the lowest of this value, we know that minimum should be equals to c. Should equal to c. So now after this line, after this 27th line, we know that maximum variable holds the maximum value between a, b, and c, and that minimum value holds the minimum value between the lowest value between a, b, and c. And now we can print the corresponding message, printf maximum between three numbers equals to %d, \n, and \n, not m, and specify the maximum variable, and also do the same for the minimum. Here we specify the minimum, and here we say minimum. Alright, so you see this simple, easy, straightforward structure just by using three if conditions without even using any else condition and without using nested conditions. So let's build and run it. Let's see how it looks like. And our previous example was something like 5, 3, and 7, right? And we expect that the maximum will be 7 and the minimum will be 3. So the maximum between three numbers is 7 and the minimum is 3. Now let's see another example. Let's see the second example that we had, just to make sure that everything is running as we expected. And it was like something like 2, let's see, 5, and 1. So the maximum between these three numbers is 5 and the minimum between these three numbers is 1. So there you go, guys. You can see that we took another approach, and I guess you first of all thought of the previous approach that we tried to use in these exercises before, using the conditions and using the if, else, and the nested conditions. And we've seen that it makes a lot of mess and a lot of unnecessary checks. It also consumes more time if the program is going to be, I don't know, a lot more variables are going to be involved. in this exercise. So at this point, it's very important for you to start thinking about how to optimize your solution and how to find the most elegant and quickest and easiest to read way to solve any exercise. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.